Everything up. My question for all of you is how, other than LinkedIn, how many of you, just by like a show of raising your hands or virtual hands, like actually use social media to leverage your business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mostly a good majority of you, which is fantastic because the best thing about social media right now is that when you think about this day and age, the influencer marketing, just like the market itself, was worth 21 billion this year. So it was worth a lot when we think about how much influencer marketing and marketing has grown as far as how we show up online. So it's pretty cool to see the changes of it. So now that my thing is up and running, I shall present this to you. Let's dive into it. I'm going to keep it like this just for the sake of like having y'all here. But basically, the step-by-step guide to your social media is going to give you all of the things that we want to go through. I made this specifically for LinkedIn, but I did pull up a page for y'all to kind of see what it can also look like on Instagram. But essentially, this is how I would want you guys to refresh because the biggest thing I want you to take away is that when it comes to social media and how you're presenting yourself as a brand online, your business is a brand. We can think about how you can start off with a product, an offer, a service, and your general operations, and those could be essentially the legs of a chair, right? Those are all the things, but the legs of the chair, they obviously need some place for people to come and sit down. So that's where you think about your brand, your marketing, and how you appear on social media. That's all essential to the foundation of your business. So to start, kind of like to give you guys kind of an idea of like what we're going to walk through is just like the intro. I'll give like a quick brief overview of myself. And even though like this has already been explained, I'm going to walk through the clarity code, which Joyce very pointed out. I think clarity is a big theme this year. And if I want y'all to take away anything for what 2025 can be is the clarity of your business as a brand. Profile optimization essentials for sure. We're going to walk through. I'll show you again the difference between LinkedIn and Instagram and can give you tips otherwise, and then how you can perform a messaging audit, a content production audit, and then action steps that you can take. So if you didn't know me, Samantha McGinley, but I also go online as Sam the Branding Coach. I have a known brand as Sam the Branding Coach, and I'm actually associated with that plenty of times when several groups, whereas people are like, oh, have you worked with Sam the Branding Coach? And that has been cool to develop as a brand. I've been in marketing and branding for the past 8 years, and essentially my goal now is to help you turn your business into that brand that attracts clients, sales, and attention because everyone deserves to have almost like a cult following fan base, quote unquote, but in the sense that whenever you're posting something or whenever you're growing your business, you absolutely want people, for lack of a better words, to just eat your stuff up. Like you want people to like consume your content. You want people to be interested. You want people to grow. You want to grow a community because I'm sure all of you know the singer Taylor Swift, right? Yeah. Like y'all have probably seen her Eras tour of how big that has been across the globe. And that hasn't been because of her marketing, that is because of her brand. She has let people in on this journey of her heartbreaks, of her loss, of like her glowing up and of everything like that, where it's like her Swifties are like it's a massive difference as far as what you think brand can be versus marketing. So that's really kind of my goal with all of you. It's important to do an overall social media audit at least every quarter, if not every 2 to 3 months, just because, excuse me, if you are trying to cultivate a community and cultivate an audience of people who need and want to buy your product, you need to recognize that your messaging may not be hitting, your content may not be hitting, something about what you're doing could not be useful. I met with someone recently who had a LinkedIn profile, wants to call in a certain audience demographic that was a little bit younger, and their posts were much more sophisticated. So it wasn't really aligning with like their ideal audience versus what kind of content they were producing. And to tell him that was a little bit heartbreaking just because he, like, the person is so educated and smart that, yeah, when you think about who you're actually calling in, regardless of your business, you are the subject matter expert. We are not. And so your business is something that you should know about, whether it be life coaching, branding, marketing, fitness, whatever it is. You are the subject matter expert, and everyone else is entirely stupid, if we put it in layman's terms. Like I explain this to hairdressers, to people who are estheticians in the strongest sense that somebody doesn't know how to wash their hair. And like y'all think that's crazy, maybe, but like that's real. Like a hairdresser is like, what kind of content I should make? I'm like, you should make a video of how to wash your hair because a lot of people don't know how to do that. Whether you're a man, woman, whatever you identify as, a lot of people don't know simple facts, and you have to break that down to where people understand it very clearly. So it ensures that your message stands out. It offers a consistent credibility standpoint because you want to be the authority piece in your industry. And to do that, you need to be clear and concise on what it is that you're offering and your overall message when it comes to your brand. So, this is something I like to call the clarity code. It is the who, the what, the why, and how of your business. A little story here as to kind of something that you can associate the clarity code with. Um, Y'all are familiar with Sony, correct? Big music production, TV company. And what it actually originated as was a waffle making company. Made waffle irons and started out as a waffle iron company, if you didn't know. All of the things of a process of what a business goes through to build and create identity marketing is that you have the product, the offer, the service, the overall operations of the business. But in order to get there to brand and identity marketing, you have to kind of establish who you are and what you do. You have to kind of establish this exact thing of the clarity code. And I have talked to multi, seven, eight-figure business owners who still kind of stutter on this notion. The who is who you want to attract. Who are you talking to? You have to define a target audience. And granted, y'all, like I understand that a lot of us, the idea of niching doesn't always work, and it does to us like it does to a specific standpoint. You have to understand that your brand needs to be slightly in bumper lanes for a little bit of time. You have to clearly talk to some sort of specific type of audience, whether it be people specifically in the beauty industry, specifically in the fitness industry, whatever it is, you have to kind of define just a little bit of a range of people because if you're talking to everyone, you end up talking to no one, which does you no good in the long term of your business. And if you think about brand building in four phases is like your family and friends understand who you are first. That's phase one. Phase two is the establishment of your audience starting to understand who you are. And you live in that era for a little bit, especially when you do a rebrand, you go back and forth into phase three, which is where people in your industry, so your peers, your colleagues, start to recognize you as an authoritative figure. They either start to follow you, talk to you, ask you questions. And most of the time, a good majority of us will live between phase two and three for a very long time until we establish phase four, which is mass market. And that usually happens anywhere between 5, 10, 15, 20,000 followers. Because you have to think about Taylor Swift, billionaire, has millions of fans all around the world. People eat her stuff up in plain, simple terms because they know who she is, they know what she offers, they know why she's doing it, and they know how they can associate there. So in this strongest sense, you have to be clear for a period of time. Like she started as a country artist and then moved way more into pop, where it's like she knew her audience in like love songs, pop songs, like the type of audience she wanted to originally draw in, and then built over time. Y'all have to really think about in the strongest sense that at the beginning it is targeting a certain amount of people. That is a very long way to say your who, but it combines into everything else. Your what is your offering? Does somebody actually understand what you do? If I can't understand what you do in like a sentence and or it spikes my curiosity to learn more, you're losing your market. And that's the truth because we oftentimes think about your offer statement should be the strongest thing about you, and it should be. If it leads into curiosity in the sense that it's a tiny bit vague where somebody wants to learn more, it can help, but at the same time, it can hurt. Because as we're starting out and as we're growing brands and businesses, we want to be as clear as possible in the beginning until we've established a much larger brand. until we've established much more credibility. Because people with 5, 10, 15,000 followers can offer really anything that kind of coincides. Maybe it's like all of a sudden this person who was they had a product offering, for example, maybe they crocheted products for 5, 10 years and built an audience off of that. Maybe they move into like fitness or makeup, but like a couple of years down the line. It would take some time for their audience, but it would still be kind of established over time that they could offer more. Point being is that your community is going to be everything. So what you're offering needs to like that needs to be clear, and it needs to be clear for a good period of time because that needs to be clearly communicated. Why is like why should they care in the sense that y'all we all started a business for a reason on a strong standing point. We did. And like the thing I talk to a lot of founders and business owners about is I'm like, why did you start your business? A lot of them kind of forget. Like they don't go back to that why. And I say, why should they care is because you started this for something. It serves something. It serves a purpose. It helps some way, shape, and form. And the thing is you're not losing your belief in it. You're just losing the essence of it in your marketing. Because identity marketing comes from the original why. Comes from I started this because I wanted to help business owners bridge the gap between marketing managers and themselves of like not having to hire people to establish a brand, but understand a brand themselves. That's my why, because I saw that. Well, what's yours? And is that clearly established in your profiles, in your marketing, in your kind of business standing? Because it needs to be, because that's the emotional aspect that connects your consumer to yourself. The how is like, how are you delivering the value? This can be in the sense of posts, content, videos. This could be in the sense of, are you interacting on stories? Are you going live? What are you doing? Are you hosting webinars? Are you offering courses? The how is where you get to the nitty-gritty of like content planning, of being present as a business owner, of really changing how you identify yourself in the marketplace. But the how is incredibly important as much as the other four are. Really implore you to kind of think about if your audience is kind of showing you that you get more engagement on video content, start filming more video content. Like, don't miss the mark just because you don't want to do it. Like, if you're starting to learn that your posts are too long because you're not getting much engagement and like you're maybe like one single paragraph post got more engagement than you had in months, like you have to start listening to your audience and how you are offering that to them because it is not digestible if they are not engaging. And you want engagement because you want people to ask questions, you want people to learn, you want people to send you DMs. And that is all in the sense of how are you delivering value? Are you just kind of what we like to call in my generation gatekeeping, meaning that I'm kind of like giving you some of it, but like you have to come to me to get it? Or are you actually producing the value in the standpoint of like, I'm going to give you everything that you need, but at the end of the day, I'm going to know that you're not going to be able to do it yourself just because you need me. And that's okay. Like, here it is. Here's exactly how you're going to do this. Like, for example, a client that was, or a potential client of mine actually, was like, hey, how do I do a content strategy? And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. I can put something in a doc for you. But at the end of the day, he's still going to come back to me because he can execute it perfectly on his own, put as much as he wanted into Chat GPT. But at the end of the day, he's still going to have a little bit of hard time until he really figures out everything that he needs to. Granted, I know that he needs me. So, point being, I'm just like, hey, I understand that this is probably a gap in your either your learning, your education, or whatever it may be, and that's okay. But I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to give you everything that I possibly can. I'm going to give you this value instead of gatekeeping, just knowing that you might still need assistance down the line. That's where the value-driven like content comes from, and that's how you deliver it effectively. Because regardless of the value, someone's still going to need you. That's plain and simple. So, profile optimization. Again, this one specifically is tailored towards LinkedIn, but I will show you an example for what it can look like on Instagram. TikTok is a different story. X is a different story. Threads is a different story. So that's why I thought I'd leave it to two. Look for your thinking about the analogy of a chair, right? If you have the product, the service, the operations, the offers of your business, and you're trying to invite someone in, are all of the things on your profile inviting enough for someone to land? Do you have a call to action in your bio? Do you have a nice picture? Do you have a nice heading to where it's super clear on your messaging, or it's just inviting? Like maybe it's a nice picture of a sunset somewhere. But point being, do you look like a person or do you look like a robot? to put it plain and simple to y'all. Like really, I've like met with a bunch of people. I do audits for social media pages and people who are working in freelance, and they're like, "Well, I kind of expected someone just to like interact with me." And I'm like, "Well, what is inviting about your page? Like, you give me bullet points in your about section, you give me bullet points in your bio, but there's nothing that's really clear on who you are and what you do." So point being, your link in bio, things like your custom buttons, those are going to be important. Drag people to your website, take people like to the things that gives them more information, but your profile, your picture, your banner, those are places that should be inviting, whether that be having a direct message or call to action on your profile itself, or whether it be again an inviting sunset picture. Doesn't matter to me, but as long as it looks and fits your brand. And it needs to be a high quality picture. Y'all, I'm telling you, you can't just do this. You can't just place your phone in front of your face and take a selfie. You got to spend the $50 or the $100 to go get a brand shoot and go get real photos done, or go invest in a tripod with like a very nice camera. And if you don't feel comfortable taking a good photo of yourself, go get your nieces and nephews. Simple as that. Go get a teenager who knows how to handle a phone. Go pay them $10 rather than the $100 that you're going to spend on a professional photographer, and just have them take photos of you. But I need it to be chest up. I need it to be like no more than that. Like we need to see your face rather than everything of you. And it cannot be zoomed in on your face either. I've seen enough profiles of that. Chest up is just the way to go. Okay. So if it's zoomed in on your face, I love your face. You're beautiful regardless, but no, absolutely not. Your bio. That is the next thing for y'all to like work on. In this bio, my bio has now changed actually, but it even you can think about this as an example. You were very clear on my profile what you come to, and I need y'all to be that exact same thing. What is the first thing that you want someone to think of when they come to your profile? Are you a founder? Are you a business coach? Are you a mindset coach? That needs to be like the first line. Like it needs to be clear. It needs to, like I need to know what exactly you're doing, because if I don't, I'm just not gonna follow you. I'm just gonna be like, oh, cool, like your profile is there. Again, you're not creating a safe space for me to land and sit down and want to learn from you. This is where that analogy of the chair comes in, right? We create a whole process to warm up someone from being a cold lead, like a freezing cold lead, all the way into a warm and a hot lead. Think about the process of when you go and like sit in your car, right? You're going from an outside cold environment into a warm car. That takes a second to get there. And then when you sit down, you're like, okay, I have to go to a destination. But think about it going to sit in a classroom or going to sit somewhere else. You have to sit somewhere wanting to be invited into the space, wanting to learn someone, paying for a ticket. Like that's the whole point. You are sitting wanting to learn from one until you engage. Your profile needs to be the same thing. So I need to be very clear on what it is, what you do, what you offer, how you're going to help me. Again, the link in bios are very important. Link it to your website, link it to an external link. Stan Store is one that I recommend. Linktree if you need more than one link, but just be specific into which one fits your profile a little bit better. Excuse me, if you have products, like digital products, Stan Store is a great place for that. You can connect Stripe. You can have more, you can have webinars, you can host a community. Linktree is a little bit more basic in the sense that it can have multiple links, but it can't offer a product. So those are two that I necessarily look at unless you're trying to drag someone or take someone to your website. Your featured section. Whoops. I do terribly at this. I will 100% admit it. I only have one single thing in here, but I absolutely love it. I created something called the Art of Apologies when I was in college, and I just think it like speaks volumes to the fact of like how much time I spent on it. But that's where I lack, just because I haven't done featured things on LinkedIn, but I don't think that's where y'all should lack at all, because the more featured this could be going pinning posts, this could go doing a video that makes sense. But either way, I need it to be there, something that's important to you, or like at least 3 or 4 things. Okay, to do a messaging audit, this is where we can get really into the nitty-gritty of things. Consistency of tone and voice, you're using clear language, engaging call to actions, and how you show up matters. Okay, so consistency of tone, voice, and voice. Those are important. So however y'all address people is important. I don't know if any of you have ever seen Kim Kardashian, the way that she ever talks on videos, and she's like, "Hey guys," like anyone my age, I'm 26, anyone like my age, Gen Z, who always like addresses things like they're YouTubers. I personally don't like it. But that's a voice, that's a tone of voice, right? I address y'all as y'all. My family's from the Midwest. It comes out of my mouth very easily. The tone of my voice is very friendly. And I come across like that in all of my posts. But you have to think about your audience in this. Who do you want to call in? Because if I'm being very sophisticated in my tone, if I'm being very sophisticated in my language, am I calling in sophisticated audience? If I'm being very sophisticated in my tone, very sophisticated in my language, am I calling in somebody who's like maybe 18 and works at a Publix? No. I'm going to call in like maybe the 65+ year old who is going to like understand and like maybe read through all of my content, but that's not my target audience. So that has to be the differentiator. How are you talking to people? How do you want to personalize it? But either way, you have to show up. And the clear language, again, y'all are the subject matter experts here. Don't let that fall short. But you also have to explain it very simply. If you're not using AI to like simplify your language, please do. It's $20 a month to get the like extended version of ChatGPT. Very inexpensive, but just go in and be like, hey, how do I explain brand development to people in very layman's terms? How do I explain it to them like they're an eighth grader? It'll pop it right out to you, and you do that in your content. Granted, that's not always the time or the thing that you need to do, but it does leave room and space for people to learn. Call to actions, meaning comment below if you agree, download this link for like the link, click the link in my bio, follow for more tips. Those are all things that you want to have in your posts, but definitely want to keep in mind just what exactly you're kind of like what you want people to do, but don't have too many. Like don't have like go download my guide, but then follow for more. Like just pick one. Like you just have to pick one. And if you post 5 days a week, have different ones throughout the week. Don't have the same one because if you want people to follow, if you want people to like, if you want people to comment, those are 3 different actions. Okay. Authenticity is just a no-brainer here. Y'all just show up as yourself, please. It's easy. You don't have to get burnt out and tired of not showing up like anyone else. Your content strategy is a big thing here. Your content types is in the sense of like, are you doing educational, entertaining, storytelling type of content? And I want you to kind of be on the mark of like what your audience needs here. Again, if your audience is liking you doing video content, show up and do more video content. If your audience is liking longer form content on LinkedIn, for example, if they like the long posts, keep doing it. If they don't. Like you have to give your space and you have to give yourself time and space to grow because your audience needs to get to know you and that starts with baby steps. Once you have a community large enough, it's not going to matter. Like for example, I had someone who was just like, well, someone posts like these like 3, 4 paragraph like long posts and it works great. Like they have tens of millions of views. And I'm like, well, yes, but they started out small because people needed to get to know them. And that's the important thing here. So you have to establish the kind of content types that one that you want to make and two that fit your audience. Content pillars. This is important, y'all. I'm happy to like hop on a separate call with y'all just because this is a little bit more in depth, but you have to have 3 or 4 main things that you talk on a regular basis, and then those need to have 3 or 4 things underneath each one. There's a plethora of things that you can make content on, but for example, myself, I focus on brand, socials, and marketing. Under brand, socials, and marketing, under brand itself is brand identity, brand development, brand as a whole, brand font, logos. Those are all subtopics, right? But then socials is like social strategy, social media content, content pillars, like all of the things that fall under socials are also subtopics. And then those subtopics have ideas, you know? So that's kind of like a big tree that falls under each. But point being is that as you're building a brand, people need to know you for who you are and like what you kind of offer. And if that's not kind of clear on your profile, then it needs to be. So those content pillars really help with not even just what kind of content you're producing, but how your audience is going to get to know you. So honestly, anywhere with 3 to 4 things that are like main topics that you cover and have topics fall under each because you just like, even though as much as we think repetitiveness isn't good, that's how where people learn from you. So engagement, same thing of where I was talking about, like where is your audience living? Shield Analytics is really good for this and or Metricool. Metricool and Shield Analytics, I can give links to. Happy to send up a follow-up email. But Shield is great for just LinkedIn. Metricool is fantastic if you're using more than just LinkedIn. For I think it's like $11 a month to connect to LinkedIn, but it does free TikTok, X, um, Instagram, a couple other ones. but LinkedIn is a cost. So either way, you kind of have to pay, but analyze your analytics because you're going to see where your audience is going to fall in or out of your content. I was just doing this with a client last night, and we saw certain topics did good and other topics didn't, but kind of have to find where they live. And as far as your posting frequency and schedule, I just implore you to kind of find a pace that works for you. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to post 7 days a week if that doesn't fit your schedule. If that just seems unattainable right now, I would just say minimum post three. Like just start to build the habit and then it'll get better. But I would never ask a new client or somebody that I know to just randomly start posting 5 days a week until they actually had, you know, they had the leg up on it. They finally like kind of got the idea of what it means to make content that much. Two more slides, bear with me. Action steps, really super clear. Define your clarity code of the who, what, why, and how of your business. You really need to optimize your profile, create a safe place for people to land. You have to refine your messaging, y'all. If you are trying to call in a specific kind of audience, then are you talking directly to them or are you talking away from them? Plain and simple. As that we don't want to be talking to everyone, we want to be talking to just a few. So in doing that, you have to evaluate your content performance and you have to evaluate content output as well. Does your audience need more? Do they need less? And that means grunt work for a little bit of time. It really does. It took me about this past 9 months to really get a good grasp on what it means to create content effectively for my audience. And still I'm learning every single day. So it just takes time, refinement, and how you show up matters. It really does. Like your audience is craving authenticity. And I don't know if y'all have seen too how much consumer buyer habits have changed now that they're taking a lot longer to buy from people than it used to because they need that trust. And like we need brand, plain and simple, we need brand. Like we need brand loyalty to come back. And this is where y'all can start doing things differently because brand has changed. Like it's no longer just a conglomerate or a business or a corporation. It is now a singular person and you are that person. So you are the brand of the company. So when you think about it like that, it changes a lot of things in our interpersonal relationships with our consumers. I wanted to add this just kind of like as a little tidbit for y'all. This is my Instagram feed kind of, but a social media audit isn't just a one-time task. It's something that you need to regularly do. Like I said, once a quarter, if not every couple of months to really evaluate if your messaging is working, if it's not, because that's where you're going to understand how your audience is consuming you and if it's actually working. Because at the end of the day, all we want is leads, sales, fulfillment. And if your marketing, your messaging, your socials, your brand is not generating any of that, then it needs the full workaround. Here are my handles. So I'm at Sam the Branding Coach on Instagram. That's where I live most actively. I'm on LinkedIn. I can send my LinkedIn profile for sure. You can have my email, and that is my direct phone number. If any of you want to shoot me a text, this is for you. I don't usually put my number out there, but for y'all, I felt like it was a kind of important just because this comes with a lot of questions, and I'm always happy to hop on a call. But essentially, that is kind of what I have for you. Oh, I know I forgot to show you what kind of in this can like the profile optimization can look like on Instagram. This is kind of what it looks like. You have a very clear bio, profile photo, highlights are important on Instagram, and pinned post as well. So just as kind of a last little tidbit there to just kind of show you what this can look like on a different profile. But overall, y'all, branding is the key to absolutely everything. So I hope if you take anything away is that you need to build a brand that lasts. You are on mute, Joyce. Joyce, you're on mute. Oh, she can't hear me. Joyce, you're on mute, girl.
Smell the roses.
There you go.
Start all over again. Thanks again, Sam. It was really educational. You talk fast like me, so I did okay with it, but I would really need to watch the slides again. That's fine. I appreciated you. Packed a lot in. And I'm going to leave the recording on because I think that helps because the Q&A can be a time for you to elaborate a little bit more and us to get some clarity, actually. So you said something about customizing CTA's call to actions based on the platform. So can you give me a distinction between something you would say as a call to action, say on a LinkedIn post versus perhaps an Instagram post?
Yeah, that's a great question. And y'all, sorry if I went a little fast for you. I was like, there's a lot to cover when these topics come on. So
Oh,
forgive me, but again, always happy to hop on calls and talk more about it. But LinkedIn, in its specific, in its entirety, is a lot more professionals, obviously. So in the sense of like what a call to action would be for LinkedIn would be follow for more information, follow to stay in touch, like something like that, where it's like follow for more, or comment below a keyword. Like a lot of these are interchangeable per platform. A lot of it is specific to an audience in itself. You have to think about where an audience lives and how they're being talked to. So LinkedIn, I've seen work of like DM me like
oh yeah.
brand, for example, DME brand, because you have to think about too, if you're creating a post that's emotionally activating someone and they're kind of triggered, they're not going to want to comment brand to like kind of point out that that's them. They're going to want to be like, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to talk to her. I'll DM brand. But
What
you're
does
not.
that mean? Can I just stop you there? So
Mhm.
a direct message, that's DM.
Yep.
But what was the last part of that?
It's like basically in the sense that if I'm gonna put at the end of a post and I'm gonna be like, if I emotionally activated you and I like almost per quote unquote triggered you by with what I said and you're like, oh shit, like excuse my language, but like wow, I felt that. Like that's me. I need help with that. If you're like comment below brand, a lot of people won't be attracted to that because it's kind of exposing them that that's their problem. And when it's
Well,
something
so to
that's
keep it offline, not the public, a comment is public, duh. But
yeah,
then a direct message, that's private, them and you. And I remember some time back, we had an Instagram speaker, Laura, you might have been there, and she said how she has anybody can direct message her. You
yep,
know, how kind of the what default, right? Probably still is the case for Instagram, is you have to each follow each other, right? To direct message, unless you change that setting. Can
yeah.
you speak to that a little bit in terms of your thoughts on direct messaging? Let any random person direct message you?
I think any of us, as we grow as business owners, you kind of have to establish whether or not you're going to be open to feedback and weirdos and whatever comes along with that. As a woman, as a young woman, creating a content profile, as a matter of fact, being a content creator in this space, it's uncomfortable. Like I get uncomfortable messages from like weird men or strange people all of the time. But at the same time, that's kind of like what I'm signing up for in the sense of being a public-faced brand, being a public-faced business of like wanting to help people with what it is. So I
With a
think
trade-off is what you're saying.
it is a trade-off because I think at the end of the
Mhm.
day, we're trying to bring engagement and wanting to call people in and to call like to let people come in. We kind of have to be open to receiving whatever message comes with that.
Thank you. Other questions for Sam? Feel free just to unmute and pop in.
I had a question.
Yes.
Um, you talked about like Linktree and so forth.
hmm
Um, is that just because they're easy to set up, or is there any reason to choose a service like that versus just building a similar page through your own website?
They're easy to set up, I think. I think in the sense of like if you just have like just like your website and you can create an external page on your website, that's fantastic. Link that. More so like a link tree or a stand store would be something you have multiple links for. So think about like a hair salon, right? Like or a
Mhm.
barber. Whenever you go to a barber, it's kind of like maybe you want to see the other barbers that are available or go to the
No,
other.
I'm asking because I mean, I see others use it. I have one
Yeah.
myself too that I've used through a third party service, you know. So I got that, but I've just been thinking like, why am I even using that if I can just essentially reproduce the same thing with my own domain, you know?
And again, you can like a lot of people use like Kajabi or their like own
Mhm.
website to do it. It's kind of just a matter of if it's easier for you. Like I think like people
Okay.
like they know Linktree, they know LTK, they know Stand Store, so it's kind of like almost like a familiarity, but it's not always necessary. Like if you can create something that's easy for you and easy creates a soft place for land, then you would be fine doing it with your website as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Sam, can you talk more about the content pillars? I know you said there's a lot there, so maybe just go over it maybe a little bit more slowly.
Yeah. So content pillars are kind of in the sense of like the main ideas that you touch on. So content pillars in the sense could be Let me think about one of my clients. She was a nurse educator. So her content pillars were education, um, leadership, and hospitals. So like
Okay.
those were her three pillars, for example. What fell under education, like if we're thinking about her consumer audience, was like
Okay.
she basically talked on how to not die in the hospital.
Mhm.
Like plain and simple of like what, yeah, right? Like what like medications, what medications save you, how to ask nurses for help. That came with like education. And then hospitals is like how to find the right hospital, what a certain grade letter means for a hospital, that sort of thing. And then with her other pillars, it's kind of like it's touching on things that make sense of like if you're talking about education and if you're talking about a certain topic, keep those as pillars, but then what falls under those? Like what falls under the
Okay.
categories that you're talking about? So like again, for me, brand, socials, and marketing, those are just the three main things that I talk about, but I also talk about brand development, brand identity, brand colors, fonts, and logos. Like that falls under the category of brand itself, but I have subtopics
Okay.
in that main topic.
Mhm.
It kind of
Got it.
it carries out itself a little bit differently of like I could show y'all like how my Notion looks because it looks psychotic, but like more so it's thinking about you have so much in your brain, right? And content pillars kind of allow you to organize that in the sense of if it's education, social media, and whatever else falls there, right? If you have so much to talk on in each one of those, then you just get to organize that into sections, basically. And you get to organize it of like, you will basically never run out of content because there's so many ideas that fall under each one. It just has to be digestible.
Awesome. And then that's what you rotate.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and like for example, like a week could look like you could have your pillars be like brand, socials, marketing, but then it'd be like brand, I focus on brand identity and brand behavior. And then it's like social media content and strategy. And then it's like so you can mix and match them how you want it to flow, but point being is that you have to deliver a message. So maybe 1 month of content has a certain theme to it.
Hmm.
Okay.
You know, what's interesting is you're talking about these pillars because I've not really conceptualized mine, but I know in reality, as you're talking, at least two. I mean, the obvious one is LinkedIn. I mean,
Yeah.
broadly, like brand for you. But another one that I find in my Tuesday tips are often about like how to be a good person. I mean, how to be a person in the business world. So the one I
Mhm.
put up today was celebrate and collaborate
Yeah.
was my little catchphrase. Because just yesterday, a B2B networking group I was at, we had our annual, just once a year, coming together of these two chapters and making policy decisions, but also celebrating that we've been growing as a chapter. And these people, a lot of them, they've never met or seen each other before. So it was very, the group paid for the lunch and it was really, and everybody got the candy bars. It was just really festive and neat. And
Yeah.
so I thought, well, and I had a group picture taken. So a lot of time, another one like a couple of weeks back was let go of leadership when it's time. Because me, I'd be leader of everything every year all my life, but that's
Hmm.
not so healthy, right? So that was then just like, I guess I would call it tips for business living successfully or something. It's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. Well, and that works, like
Mhm.
mindset,
Yeah,
leadership skills, like whatever you kind of like follow and that you're passionate about, that's so
right.
important to add in there. And like the whole concept of brand for just like for all of you could kind of take away is that brand is kind of like Tesla right now. It's like Tesla came out before its time in the sense of like autonomous vehicles were a little bit like strange to everyone. People were like, nah, like, how do I take this? And then the company went bankrupt, and they were like, "Oh, like that sucks." But then he came back and he was like, "Let me give you a leasing option. Like you can just try it." And then that's what saved the company ultimately. It's kind of what branding is right now. Of just like branding used to be one thing. It used to
Yeah.
be just businesses and companies and like
Crudy
how.
has, I think we have time for like one more question or comment.
Yeah.
Crudy, why don't you go ahead, dear?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just curious. You guys were talking about LinkedIn, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like we have a company page for Alice
Hmm.
app AI on LinkedIn. Um, And I usually, when I post about the company or a feature or just a thought piece, I usually post from the Alice page because
Mhm.
I'm an administrator. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like posting from like me posting from my LinkedIn profile versus doing it from a company page. Like is one better or is it more, just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
And
Yes.
Chris was also just asking, could you finish the part about company versus personal branding, which really is kind of what I think you're asking too. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, so like what I said, what I was saying is that branding has changed in the sense that it's no longer a business, it can be a person. And so it can just be one single like influencer, it can be one single person of like how we like how we create change into something. So it is really cool in the sense of how branding is developed. It's just still new. So Crudy, for you in the sense that creating from a business, your business page or your like kind of personal page, I would say utilize both, but like yeah, the business page is it's just gonna take some time because that in itself does take a little bit more awareness, because like the business page they're not as noticeable, but they can be. And so as long as it's kind of like being reposted from a person or like other personal brands that associate with it, that helps with outreach, that helps with like gaining that visibility. So you're doing great with what you're doing. It's just kind of like making sure that other people who are kind of in the same space or can give it the visibility share it too. Because like that's the
Better
important
if I may
thing.
just interject to start, say she has that post on her company's business page, and then take that post and do the copy link to post and put it over on her Crudy personal, persona, as opposed to starting with Crudy and then copy and paste over to the business page. Which order is better, do you think?
I would say you c- it's like if we want to draw the attention to the business page itself, then it's like post on the business page and then share it as Crudy. And then
That's
like,
kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah,
yeah,
I
because
know
like
it's
you're
the other way around, but I think I should do it the other way. At least some of
yeah,
the time.
bringing the awareness from the business page to the personal brand that you already have established is kind of like the way
Mhm.
it's like you already have connections and whatnot that will bring it visibility on its own. So you just kind of have to share simultaneously.
That's great. I know our
Thank
time
you.
is right up. Oh my gosh, again, this is awesome. So good. So good. Wow. I wanted to say just really quickly as we're